Joshua, good to see you, and thanks for making a bit of time to come and have a chat with me. I know you're pretty busy at the moment. I want to kick off by reflecting back to you something that you said to me last time we spoke. You said Donald Trump cancelling USAID has made my business. Now, a lot of people would be really surprised by that. I mean, what do you mean, and why did that happen? And just tell us what's going on there.
Yeah, well, thanks, Paul, for having me on this podcast. Uh, the origins of my statements really were anchored in the fact that a lot of African countries were dependent and have been dependent on foreign aid to run their health budgets. And what this did is that it made innovations like ours seem unattractive to African governments, um, because they would have to, I guess, pay. Um, we come in with models that are paid models
Yeah.
of sustainably working within our budget to solve healthcare problems. Yeah, and now that that money is no longer available, um, we've just found that African leaders and health officials are willing to explore options on the ground, both locally and abroad. And so that's helpful. It's been helpful to us. I think Africa is now a lot more open to new ideas. Um, and I think this has been a silver lining and a blessing in disguise. Uh, as much as it was painful, it was really painful in the beginning. A lot of my friends, I have friends who've lost jobs who were working for USAID funded organizations. But I think in the long run, it's good for the continent.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what was going through my mind as you were speaking was painful but helpful, which in the long run is probably going to be a good thing, I guess, isn't it? Really, given what you said. So for the people that don't know what you do, I mean, tell us. Let's start off with the mission. What is it you're trying to achieve exactly? I mean, just I know you're in a particular you offer a particular type of service, product, however you want to describe it. I mean, just tell us what you're trying to achieve in terms of your business and the things that you're doing.
What I'm trying to do is to ensure that every person on the continent has access to the diagnostic test that they need when they need it. I'm a pathologist and a clinician at heart, and I've just lived through um, 20 years of healthcare, watching people suffer trying to get a diagnosis, often getting misdiagnosed because the lab tests or the diagnostic tests or they're not there. So that's my mission is can I create a system that helps everybody get that test that they need that will move them to the next level and say, yes, this is my diagnosis. What next?
Yeah. So, I mean, just so I understand this correctly, I mean, what you're saying is it's a very small part of the healthcare system, but it's a really important part. I mean, have I understood that correctly? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not it's not small. Okay, well, it is small. In medical school, we were taught that around 70 to 80% of your diagnosis comes from history and physical examination. So the history of the patient and physical examination. Then the rest, around 20%, comes from investigation. So X-rays and lab tests and things like that. They just reinforce what you already thought the patient had, or confirm it. But most of the diagnosis comes from that. So yes, in that respect, it's small, but it's extremely important because it is the basis of evidence-based medicine. You can imagine in a continent where you have lots of people who may have various infections or fevers or whatever, um, or if somebody has a tummy ache, who knows how many things can cause tummy aches? So many things can cause tummy aches. So without being able to do the tests that you need to do, um, it's really difficult. So yes, it's small, but it's important.
Yeah. And at a practical level, just to give people a flavour of what you do, I mean, what sort of diagnostic stuff do you cover? I mean, because you do quite a wide range of things, I think, don't you?
Well, we're mostly in lab diagnostics at the moment, though we do interface with our radiology colleagues. I'm a histopathologist, meaning I started off with tissue. We started off with tissue pathology. We have created a tech platform. This tech platform connects hospitals and doctors from a wide geographical range. I mean, from all over Kenya, really. They um, they basically log into our software platform and order a test. We then see where these tests are, the samples, we pick them up, take them to a nearby lab. Uh, the lab processes the tests. We then assign it to a pathologist, often because a pathologist needs to look at it under the microscope.
Yeah.
When the pathologist makes the diagnosis, he presses a diagnose button or submit button, and the results are immediately available. Yeah, we can do lots of tissue tests. People who have like prostate biopsies, breast biopsies, where they're suspecting somebody has breast cancer or prostate cancer, or even tests as simple as blood tests for various things. Um, yeah, those are some of the tests that we do. HPV has been very interesting recently, which is cervical cancer screening, testing for the virus that causes 99% of cervical cancers, human papilloma virus. So we help with that. Yeah, and these are some of the things that we can do.
I mean, it sounds like a brilliant idea. I mean, how did you think of it? I mean, in one sense, when you describe it to me, I think, well, that's obvious that we should be doing that, but it obviously wasn't obvious because people weren't doing it. I mean, how did you come up with the idea in the first place?
Uh, well, I'd like to say I was a genius, but yes, stumbled on. I, I was just trying to solve a problem
Yeah.
that I was experiencing and people in my environment were experiencing. So we tried various solutions and we ended up on this one. Um, I was working for a um, university and I was teaching. I was teaching pathology. And as I taught pathology, I was working part-time in a lab and volunteering at a hospital nearby, doing procedures called fine needle aspirations. Fine needle aspirations is where you take a needle, you put it into a lump. Um, someone, lumps in the neck, the breasts,
Yeah.
somewhere else. You suck out a little tiny bit of whatever is there, spread it on a slide, stain it, look at it, make a diagnosis. It's a very simple procedure and not very painful. You get a diagnosis in a day or two. It's very useful. So I would perform that. Um, in a small town called Meru in Kenya.
Right.
Then I came across a woman who I think I will just call her Martha because I don't want to say her real name, but she transformed my life really. Just interacting with her. When I met her, she'd been sent for an FNA and she had a lump in her left breast, and the lump had ulcerated the breast and caused a non-healing wound with pus, and it just wasn't nice. Clinically, she was a stage 4 cancer. And I asked Martha, like, what happened? And just to understand, how her journey was to get here. I was a little surprised and shocked. And she told me that she had already had a biopsy a year ago. Like a year before I met her, she had a biopsy. It's like, oh, okay. Then what happened? She said, well, I had the biopsy done. I was given the biopsy. I was told to take it into town, Meru town, to a lab, and then pay, and they'll test it. I said, oh, fantastic. So what did you do? Yeah, I took it to the lab. It went to Nairobi, and I went home. Oh, great. Did you get the results? No, I didn't get the results.
That's such an awful story.
A year later, she didn't have the results.
Yeah.
When she initially came a year ago, the lump was really tiny. Now it's big. So obviously she probably came at stage two or so, and now she's at stage four. So I asked her why she didn't come back. Guess what? The reason why she didn't go for her results is because she thought that the operation that they did for biopsy was an operation to remove the tumor. So in her mind,
Okay.
what she was taking was the entire tumor for testing. So she thought whether I go for the results or not doesn't matter because I'm fine. Um, and I felt so bad because honestly, it's just not right, to have. Um, I mean, she did everything. Everything she was told to do, she did, and the we couldn't blame her for not knowing that. Yeah. And so I realized that the problem was not that there was no pathologist or there was no lab or there was no hospital or no theater. The problem was that all these pieces were not talking to each other.
Yeah. Which is so often the problem in these kind of situations, isn't it, really? I mean, that's a very sad story, but the silver lining, of course, is that it helped you come up with the idea to fix that. So
Yeah.
that, one hopes that those outcomes will be positive as a result of that, but very, very difficult for her, I would say. I mean, I think it's a absolutely marvelous proposition. I mean, given what you've just said, it does sound to me like it's been quite a tough, we talked about this last time. You've been on a bit of a journey to build the business. I mean, in terms of you personally, when I talk to entrepreneurs, they will tell me it's a bit of a roller coaster, good days, bad days, and everything in between. I mean, what is it that gets you out of bed every day to kind of ride that roller coaster, to keep pushing away, to get this thing going?
Oh, yeah, well, I guess that's I think that only another CEO can ask that. Yeah, I guess a lot of it is the promises I've made to myself and to my patients and to our customers, and to the people who use our services, the doctors who rely on us. And yeah, it helps carry me through that. I'm a man of faith, and so sometimes, I prayed a long time ago and made a promise to God to do it.
Right.
And so all these promises, and when I have those bad days, I think if I give up, I mean, yes, if I stop, what's going to happen? Probably nothing to me, but so many people who rely on this um, solution.
Yeah, and I guess the bigger the project gets, the more people rely on it, the more you can't afford to stop, can you?
You can't
You've got
stop.
to stick at it really, because it's not as if
Really
if
can't
you
do it.
closed it down, it would affect more than one person, wouldn't it?
It would affect thousands of people. So, like we serve over 7,000 people a year at the moment in Kenya, and that's probably going to double this year. So, yeah, you just can't do it. But also, I think at the moment it's become bigger than me. It's it's bigger than me. It's
What do you
the
mean by that?
dream.
What do you mean bigger than you? Just tell us what you mean by that.
The problem that I'm solving is not. It's bigger than any one person. This is a it's it's an ecosystem um, thing, ecosystem. It's an ecosystem solution that we've created. It has so many stakeholders. The other day we were negotiating with a lab, a pretty powerful and big laboratory chain in the country, in Kenya, and they wanted some perks and some special treatment. And I had to tell them that, you know, if we can work with them, but we have to work with them in a way that's fair for everybody
Yeah,
because the system is designed to promote fair and just um, diagnostic processes.
Yeah.
So yes, even those the people who have leverage, uh, but that doesn't mean that we can be used to maybe drive out of business a competitor or something like that. So there is a social justice aspect of this that I hadn't thought of when I started. Just the fact that when you have so many institutions uh, using your platform, they begin to you start dealing with things that you hadn't expected.
And I guess, and by the sounds of things, that kind of equity, social justice component is particularly important to you. I mean, is that right? I mean,
Yes.
yeah. And
Well,
why is that so important to you? I mean, because it's not purely about the technology, is it?
it's not just about the technology. It's the fact that we need to stay with the patient in mind.
Mm.
The patient has to be front and center of all our interactions and everything that we do. And I think as long as we have that as our North Star, we will keep making the right decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm sure you will. I mean, let me ask you about something that kind of relates to that. One of the things I like about entrepreneurs is that they're constantly challenging the status quo. They're constantly saying there's a different way to do this, usually a better way to do this. We can use technology to do this in a better way. But that's a tough place to be, challenging the status quo. I mean, how do you feel about that experience?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's something that we constantly do at every level. Let me say that healthcare and especially modern healthcare as currently structured, Western medicine, so to say, is designed all these standards, the ISO standards, the various health and safety standards, protocols, etc. Many of them were designed for more developed countries. They were, and then later on they tried to be adapted or modified to fit with the realities of developing countries, but often not very well. They don't fit um, neatly into the context of a doctor practicing in Kenya or especially outside of an urban environment.
Mm.
So, how do you create a system that's still safe, even if it's not necessarily within the boundaries of what a Western medical practitioner would consider safe, right? But it's safe within the context of African
How, I
society.
mean, that's a really interesting question. I mean, how have you approached that? I mean, because that's clearly a problem. And how have you dealt with that?
We've had to propose our own standards. And uh, I mean, I realized obviously I couldn't do this on my own.
Sure.
Uh, so we've created internally a body called the Pathology Network Medical Governance Council,
Right.
which is an internal body composed of um, medical practitioners who are partners of the pathology network. So these are, and they have a chair who is not me, and it's an independent body with a pathologist who runs it, and they come up with rules, and those rules take into consideration the realities of African medical practice.
So you found a way to adapt
Yes.
that
Take
makes sense.
Yes. And so we don't abandon Western standards. I mean, some of them, I mean, have really been well thought out. Um, but there are aspects that are not easily applicable to Africa and to certainly not to Kenyan medical practice. But that doesn't mean that the doctor who can't meet that specific standard or the hospital that can't meet that specific standard should be thrown out, that they don't qualify.
Yeah, yeah. a very interesting kind of challenge that it sounds to me. Let me ask you about the kind of the journey that you've been on. I mean, when you started out, what did you think the biggest challenges were that you were going to have to overcome? I mean, what was it you thought, okay, these are the things I'm going to have to deal with? And has that proven to be the case? Was your assessment of what the challenges are, has that proven to be the case, or have you faced very different challenges as things have unfolded?
Um, yeah. Well, I think I initially, well, when I first started out, I thought that the main challenge I would have is uh, probably selling the solution, um, and getting hospitals to and doctors to use it,
Yeah.
and certainly has been a bit of a challenge because it's very new. But I thought what would be easy would be getting my colleagues, pathologists, to embrace it, uh, getting funding for it because it seems obvious. I thought those would be relatively easy, and the hard bit,
Presumably they weren't.
no, it wasn't easy. It 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 was surprising just how challenging it was to first of all just get my colleagues, my pathologist friends and colleagues to believe in what we're doing and to trust it, um, and to create a rhythm and trust. Um, I also underestimated how long it would take for the market to understand what we're doing because nothing like this had been done before in the lab space. So the assumption was when I would show up and say, I'm a pathologist and I represent a team of pathologists and we can serve your hospital, they immediately think, I'm a lab. I'm representing a lab. The Pathology Network is a lab. And it took a long time for people to realize we're not a lab. Pathology Network is not a lab. It is a software coordinator that
Yeah.
that is an intermediary between people who need lab services and the labs and pathologists who provide those services. We just help that um, relationship to work smoothly. We provide the digital um, infrastructure to make everything work smoothly and transparently. It's taken a while for people to see that because it's just never been done before.
I mean,
Yeah.
and it's interesting you say that. So much of innovation is about joining the dots up in new ways. And you would think that people would be able to get their heads around that, but they struggle, don't they? I mean, people struggle with anything that isn't the status quo,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my experience.
Yeah. But then funny thing is that once they settle into it, it seems natural. It's like, yeah, this is fine. This always works. This
Yeah,
obviously. It's like, yeah, obviously. Yeah, this works.
yeah. And on that journey, I mean, presumably you've had to deal with lots of those sorts of challenges. Were there any kind of critical moments that kind of reshaped or redirected the business in different ways? I mean, I mean, I'm interested in this idea that every now and again
Yeah.
on the journey, you run into a kind of a critical decision. I mean, lots of decisions aren't critical. They're important, but they're not critical. Whereas sometimes you come up against something, you say, well, I've got to go that way or do I go that way?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those are really difficult decisions. I mean, have those impacted on your journey?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think those forks in the road are quite a number. And they've been there throughout, and I think we're getting to another one in the next month or two. So yeah, it's they're there. I think the first one was deciding to get a co-founder.
Right.
Because I started off all alone and built it up to specific, to a particular stage, and then I realized I can't go beyond this without bringing on board a co-founder because I'm stretched in every direction. And I went out looking for people who could join me and work with me. That was quite a decision. And I remember getting advice from YouTube, from a billionaire. YouTube, yeah, I just I watched this video where Sam Altman was interviewing Vinod Khosla. I mean, I'm sure you know these people.
Yeah.
And and Vinod said something so insightful. He said that the right people, it's hard to get the right people to join you, and you as a founder need to be generous with equity to get them to join. Um, because they are, when you get the right person joining you, they can accelerate
Yeah.
your business. And that just helped me to be a lot more generous with my ideas of around equity. And I got two co-founders after that. Yeah.
Mm. And has that done as you said? Has it accelerated you?
It really accelerated us. I think that was back then. I mean, after that, I've had um, several such decisions, usually big ones like who do you bring on board? At what stage do you concentrate on something? For example, investing in building capacity of your business versus investing in increasing the sales. Again, and in medicine, it was really it's really concerning because you can risk patients' lives
Mm.
if you take on more work than your ability to keep those samples safe and your processes, operational processes, robust. So yeah, it's been quite a balance.
Yeah, difficult decisions. Let me ask you about that specific. I mean, one of the other things that interests me about the CEO's job is that the CEO's role is critical usually. And one of the reasons it's critical is because one of the jobs is to kind of, if you like, separate the signal from the noise,
Yeah.
separate, you know, it's very easy, and I know this because I've made this same mistake myself, is to be distracted by interesting or shiny stuff that kind of pops up.
Yeah.
How do you kind of separate the signal from the noise? How do you work out, well, we're going to do this, but we're not going to do that? How do you work out a way through the kind of distractions and the noise?
Yeah. Wow. It's an incisive question. I'm still learning. I'm still getting better at it. There was again, an try if I forget who I watched, I forget his name, but there's someone who said that you can only work and improve one or two things every 3 months. Like you can't focus on everything.
Yeah.
Uh, so so what I've been doing is setting a yearly target. So at the beginning of the year, say at the end of this year, this is the big milestone that I want us to achieve. And then I break that down into steps and focus on something for the first 3 months. And if it's sales, it's sales. If it's a marketing process, it's a marketing process. If it's a leadership development thing, I focus on that. It could be any number of things, and that's helped me to make meaningful jumps um, in those specific sectors. Uh, and sometimes there's a lot of pressure to to focus on other things. And it's just really challenging to
It's that ability to prioritize, isn't it? And to figure
yeah,
out what today, this is the thing that we need to prioritize, not those other things. I mean, I always think that's a really difficult decision. You
it's
know?
very hard. And sometimes you get moments of self-doubt, like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, am I focusing on the right thing? Even though yes, I did choose this, and I have my rationale, the reason why it's this is going to lead to this, and so this is a prerequisite. Um, but sometimes things are really going wrong in another area, and you think, oh, I should be focusing on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the other, I mean, one of the other things that interests me about the CEO's role is, I mean, cutting through the noise is one thing. The other thing I think that's interesting is dealing with uncertainty when you don't know what's going to be happening. I mean, Trump is a good example. Because he cut USAID, I mean, that created a lot of uncertainty for lots of organizations, and yeah, probably did quite a lot of damage. Done some good things, but done quite a lot of damage. I mean, what's your feeling about dealing with uncertainty when you're not sure which way to jump, if you like? You're not sure which way the road's going to turn. What are your feelings about that?
Yeah, well, I don't. I'd love to hear your feelings and your thoughts about that. I mean, personally, it's I guess it's like an instinct because there are things that you can. It's like a gut feeling. Because there are things that I can reason out and say there are 1,000 fires burn. I mean, a thousand maybe. There are 100 fires burning. But I think this is the most important one that we need to fix this one because it is critical and it can damage our business short term and long term. These other fires, we can fix them later
Yeah,
because in a startup, there's always something burning.
yeah,
Yeah. So sometimes I realize sometimes I make decisions that not necessarily based on a rational I can't explain every reason why I've made that decision. I can say some, but because most of the time all the fires look important.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what was sort of behind my question was this: the sort of on the one hand, I talk to CEOs that are very intuitive
Yeah.
about the way they make decisions. And I talk to other people that will say, I'm driven by the data. It's all about the data. I don't, and I wonder actually whether everyone sits somewhere between those two ends of the spectrum. And I was wondering what was behind my question was to what extent, because you've got a software
Yeah.
platform that must give you acres of data, I would have thought. And as more people use it, the more data you're going to get, so the bigger
Yeah.
that haystack is going to get. I mean, does data play a big role in your decision-making processes as a CEO?
Well, we just recently, so let me say this, 2 years ago, was it 3 years ago, 2023, I just raised 650,000 USD to upgrade our software.
Mm.
Um, so went out, hired a team, and it's taken 2 years though to you know do the software and now roll it out. So we rolled it out last year. And so now I'm beginning to get the data that I need to make decisions. Before then, a lot of the decisions were based on both based on data, but a lot of them were based on data that I knew how I was collecting it. So I would ask specific questions to specific people, and I would know. I'll in that way collect. I'll just make 2 or 3 phone calls in the morning, and I know and listen to some of our meetings, and I know exactly where the company is. Right now, we're becoming a lot more data driven, allowing us to become much bigger. But most importantly, our leaders are now becoming data driven so that the team managers, the departmental leaders now have the same access to the same data that I would have had to make decisions. And that's now really transforming our company. So I've been moving away from intuition and kind of codifying the culture around around that data and around the use of data and the application of that data to our relationships with our customers.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned culture. Well, I wanted to ask about that. I mean, one of the other things that is very interesting about kind of businesses at the moment is, if you like, how you build a high performance culture. Because I mean, most of the organizations have got relatively small teams, so you
Yes.
need those people to operate at a fairly high standard.
Yes.
Um, Given that you're dealing with technology and people's data and security and all those things, so you need to create a culture where people perform at their best. But often people are working remotely, people aren't all in the same office, particularly if you're working in multiple jurisdictions or different parts of the same country. I mean, what's your feeling about how you build that high performance culture? I know you've just talked about, in embedding data into the decision making process, but what else do you think has an impact on that kind of performance culture?
What else has an impact? Well, transparency in processes and communication, I think is very, very important for
And why do you feel that's important? I mean, just explain why.
because it builds trust.
Okay.
It builds trust. It builds trust between the the team and the leadership. It also builds trust between um, the customers and the staff. So if we're kind of like a logistics company in a way. We do a lot of coordination. Um, and the more that our staff understand the needs of our customers and the pain of our customers, the clearer they understand that, um, the more they can empathize with what's going on when there's a delay in a result or when something goes wrong. Similarly, when our customers can clearly see uh, how we operate and the integrity with which we're handling their samples and the commitment that we have to them getting their results on time, getting their results accurately, accurate results on time at a fair price. The more transparent that is, again, the more they trust us. And once that trust becomes visible to our team doesn't want to lose that trust. And so then that relationship becomes a stable relationship where two people are meeting to serve one another. And I don't once that's established, I don't want to interfere with that relationship because it's already established and the two of them are already buddies. So
Well,
that's my job
it
as CEO.
underpins productivity as well, doesn't it? If people feel they can work together and want to,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, one of the other interesting things about building a business today is that we people build businesses in what you might describe as the age of social media. And what I mean by that is that any single member of your staff, any single member of your kind of customers or patients could go onto Facebook or Instagram and say anything,
Yeah.
you know, which means that there's a really big risk of reputational damage if people start doing crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your feeling about building a business in an environment like that? I mean, it's interesting your point about trust that you were just making, but what's your feeling about trying to build trust, trying to work with people in an age when there's so much scrutiny?
Well, yeah, and again, I think it just underpins the transparency
Yeah.
question because um, there was a book written in back in the 80s called it's called Great some building great companies. What's it
Is it
called?
good to great?
Good to Great. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, and and one of the things mentioned there is, cultures. How do you what defines a actually defines company values? And um, I read through that and really analyzed our values because I was impacted by the idea that values are not what you say,
Mm.
the values are not what you write.
They're what
Um,
you do, aren't
it's actually what you do. What is it that we really do and what we really believe? And 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 so I feel like if a company rewards its true values, um, and everything is centered around those values, including how staff promotions, assessment of of performance is not, because I think a lot of companies promote or um, they judge the performance of a person based on maybe a financial metric, while actually what the person is supposed to be performing is a emotional thing, something that is relational. And so those two metrics um, don't tie together easily, and it can be very confusing. So that conflict and that tension, I think, would end up leading to someone saying, ranting on social media because they feel conflicted in their workplace.
Mm.
They feel like the company is saying publicly one thing, but privately on closed doors, under behind closed doors, there's pressure to do something else. And so I'm really trying that as we grow, we maintain the same values, publicly and privately.
Yeah.
And
And how did you, I mean, how did you work out what those values were? Because it's, again, it's quite easy to say, it's a bit more difficult to do, isn't it? I mean, how did you figure them out?
it's very hard, yeah. And I think there can be my values, which I have, but they're not necessarily the company values, especially as we grow. So the values do need to be constantly spoken about and constantly evaluated by the leadership. They adopted by the leadership and then passed down to everybody else. I think I didn't come up with. I had the values when I started. I had my personal values when started the business. Basically integrity and making sure that um, we are a good steward for the patient. I, we're intellectually courageous. We're Courage is one of our values. We're like, yeah, we're gonna go where nobody else has gone before. We're physically courageous, gonna go to the remotest parts of Africa. All of that, fine. But then as we I didn't know about codifying those values until much 2 or 3 years into my business, when I began to actually really think, like, what are my values, and are these actually the company values?
Yeah.
And yeah, now that I'm building a stronger leadership team, especially in Kenya, where we have a big chunk of our team, um, as they become more and more independent in running the operations, um, I'm helping them to reflect on themselves and their own values. Um,
And to what extent, I mean, this is a bit of an odd question, I think. To what extent did those values shape the way that you put together the business model? Has it had an impact on that?
yes, the values underpin everything.
Yeah.
So, because once you have your values, you then have the principles that in which you operate your business, the financial principles and all of that. And then the policies are based on those principles. So values are rather deep, but they permeate into every decision that's made. So um, yeah, so how did how did it change some of the decisions and the products and the
In
business model?
business model, really, the way that you generate revenue, the way that you, I mean, has it had an impact on that? I mean, are there things that perhaps you don't do because you feel they don't fit with your values, but you could make money out of them? I mean, how does that impact on the kind of the income stream, the business? I mean, I'm talking about the financial business model, I guess, is that perhaps a better language for it.
Yeah, we could have had we could have taken money from investors who were not aligned with us,
Yeah.
uh, with our values, but we didn't. And for us, that's important that we have people who are aligned, who don't just want to extract from the continent, just extract from the healthcare system, but who are interested in us um, actually transforming healthcare. Secondly, we serve regions of the country that are not necessarily profitable to serve.
Right.
So it's usually easier to serve urban areas where the concentration of healthcare facilities and labs is higher, than to serve remote groups who are really far away. And yeah, but because in our values, we do we do value that service to everybody. We believe that everybody is all human life is important, not just people in.
And just to pick up that point, I mean, one of the other interesting things is, doing business in, I don't know, Kenya is probably slightly different to doing business in South Africa, for example, or
Mhm.
Malawi or whatever. I mean, given what you do, how do you sort of manage those kind of cultural differences in relation to the way you work with the people in the labs, the patients that you deal with?
Yeah.
Because Africa is a big continent. It's, things are
Uh,
different. The different bits of it are different, aren't they?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a big place. And we have different sorts of people,
Yeah.
and different cultures. What's good about technology is that technology is an enabler.
Mm.
And what we've designed our technology with this respect for the variation in local nuances and local culture. So right now, we are in the process of um, exploring various licensing models that will allow our software to be used to provide the same service that we're providing in Kenya, in Malawi, in Zimbabwe, in Ghana, but it can be customized and tweaked so that the business model and the way that it's applied in in Ghana might be quite different from Kenya, but the basic diagnostic process is the same because that's universal.
Yeah. And do you think, I'm asking about the future now. Do you think AI is going to have an impact on that? Most of the other sectors, most of the other CEOs I talk to are kind of chasing around because of what AI is doing to their world or their business. What's your take on the way AI is going to change things for you?
AI has turned my thinking on its head.
Because
Uh,
just explain that. Why has that happened?
so last year, I I spent roughly, I don't know, maybe a combined 1 month or 1.5 months, if I was put all the time that I've spent with AI in one go. I s- hours and hours and hours with ChatGPT and listening to videos um, and training and learning stuff about how to use AI, then how to build AI systems and agentic systems and tinkering with that and the deeper that I dig, the more I discover about just how powerful um, LLMs can be, and especially combined with other technologies, how they can create systems that are um, beyond anything that I could have imagined. And so every aspect of our operational process will be impacted, will be made more efficient because of AI. And I think this is a defining moment for African healthcare. Um, you say we have so many young people who we want to give them jobs, but they don't have the training or experience to run the kind of platforms that we're building. Um, but they can learn with AI tools. So if we create AI tools that make up for the inadequacies of our workforce,
Mhm.
uh, it means that we can, spread across the continent much faster and much safer. Um, and Yeah, it's the only way. I mean, we have 3,000 pathologists on the continent, maybe four now, maybe 4,000 pathologists on the continent of Africa for a population of what, 1.8 billion?
Not a
It's,
lot, is it?
I mean, it's not a lot. I mean, it's basically one pathologist to a million people. Um, and the ratio should be 1 to 20,000, right? For us to have I mean, there's no way we're going to train all those pathologists. We're not going to train enough pathologists in time. But with AI, one pathologist could do the job of 20 pathologists, for example. You can 20x or 30x that pathologist's work, and efficiency. Uh, using various techniques. So why not? That's how we're going to do this. And it's not just a pathologist. So we have lab technologists and hospital administrators and clinicians
Doctors.
and yeah, the doctors. Yeah, it's the opportunities are there, and I think it's going to create employment. It's just it's the employment will not be the kind of employment that we thought. Certainly we need more engineers, but it's going to create a lot of other type of employment. um, and I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, whichever way it shakes down, it's going to be an interesting few years, would be my reading of it.
Very, very interesting.
Let me
Yeah.
ask you about just a final few questions before we wind up. Let me ask you about the journey that you've been on. I mean, when you look back at the beginning of the journey, I mean, is there anything that you know now that you wish you'd known then?
Oh, yeah. Um, yes, I wish that I would be, I wish I'd known that it's gonna be really hard and there will be really rough days and that I shouldn't beat myself up. Yeah.
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 I mean, people don't appreciate, I don't think, how difficult it is to build a company. I mean, it's totally different to working in the public sector or working for a third sector. I mean, it's a different experience, isn't it?
Yeah. It is very yeah. And there's so many pressures. You think you're an entrepreneur, so people think you don't have a boss. So you have but no, you actually end up having lots of bosses. You have your shareholders and your board and your staff who are all looking to you and literally saying, "Hey, look, we need to do this and we need to do this. What do we do?" So they're on your necks. Then you have your customers and they want stuff. And then you have the realities of the bank account and paying salaries and meeting payroll. I mean, yeah. So, and then you have personal, like family and wife and children asking, why aren't you here with me? You didn't attend, you're not here for me to do this or to do that. And I'm always
Yeah,
with mom.
I think it's a tough gig.
Very painful.
Also pretty interesting would be my feeling about it. I mean, it's hard, but it's one of the most interesting things, I think.
I wouldn't trade it for because it's also addictive
Yeah.
because you get to sit at the front row of a roller coaster and in a way you're driving it and you never know the next turn. But I also think when we make a mistake, it can be a bit. I should learn to be a little easier on myself. And I like the American culture that allows it's a bit easier on mistakes and they celebrate the learning, which is a little different from other parts of the world.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are only two types of people on the planet. There are people that make mistakes and people that pretend they don't. I mean, that is the way of the world, I think. So, Joshua, thank you for taking time to share that journey. Absolutely fascinating, brilliant proposition. Well done on pulling it all together. I mean, I'm impressed. And good luck going forward. I know you're, relatively early in the journey still, and I know you've got lots of ambition to change things right across the continent. So good luck going forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paul, for bringing me on.
All
Yeah.
right. Good to speak to you. See you soon, Joshua.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.